On July 14, 1948, the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance, the governing body, formed and declared Orville Brown the first ever National Wrestling Alliance World Heavyweight Champion. And from there, the traveling champion concept continued to take shape, even though there were other traveling champions before the National Wrestling Alliance was formed. George Hackenschmidt, Frank Gotch, Ed Strangler Lewis, so many great wrestlers that so many historians have dived into. But when the NWA, National Wrestling Alliance, was formed, Orville Brown, they said, "You're the guy." And then we got Lou Thesz, one of, if not the greatest world heavyweight champions of all time. 3,700 some odd days over 3 reigns. That's a hell of a goddamn legacy. And then you have Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. Woo! Wait, different kind of Buddy Rogers. Yeah, even Dick Hutton, even though that really didn't work out all that well. So much history wrapped up in the National Wrestling Alliance. The 10 pounds of gold, the Globe Championship, the big gold belt, whatever. It was seen as such a prestigious championship. Jack Briscoe, Dory Funk Jr., Terry Funk, the only 2 brothers to ever be world heavyweight champion on a major scale. I mean, seriously, the Funk brothers. I mean, come on, right there. That's goddamn wrestling royalty. Gene Knitsky, Harley Race, one of the toughest and most revered world heavyweight champions, one of the toughest wrestlers ever, and so many great goddamn memories. Harley Race, legit tough, didn't ever run away from a goddamn fight. He was not scared one goddamn bit. And then you get to Ric Flair, you get to Dusty Rhodes, you get to Kerry Von Erich, winning it in memory of his brother David. So many great memories. Texas Stadium, that is what the National Wrestling Alliance was about. It was about great moments. Giant Baba won it while while there were tours in Japan because Giant Baba was so revered and in with the NWA. And even when the NWA governing body pretty much went totally tits up and the beginning of the Ted Turner owned WCW, you had Ricky Steamboat have it. You had Ric Flair, you had Sting, and then you had Sting win it again in NWA TNA right before the TNA NWA relationship went away. And then Shane Douglas decided to say, "They can all kiss my ass." Even that didn't completely tarnish the NWA World Heavyweight Championship legacy. Dan the Beast Severn and other talents that it's going to take so much to go into, but Adam Pearce with multiple reigns, Jeff Jarrett, AJ Styles, Ron the Truth Killings, and even in the dog days when it was just either part of Ring of Honor or part of the Indies, there were still many great people that held it. Blue Demon Jr., Rob Conway, yes, Mr. Just Look at Me. Rob Conway was a former NWA champion. And then the rebirth when William Billy Patrick Corgan decided to say, "Hey, I'm going to buy the controlling by the National Wrestling Alliance, and I'm going to run it my way. I'm going to run it my way. I'm going to do it my way." Tim Storm, great classic, great babyface, and really, just well respected, everything. Hard worker, great world champion. Nick Aldis, the national treasure. After a whole bunch of stuff that happened in TNA, he became world heavyweight champion. You even had Trevor Murdoch. You had so many people, good, bad, or indifferent, but a lot of great talents. Even Tommy Rich had it for 4 goddamn days. And now, William Billy Patrick Corgan apparently decided, "Hey, these brain parasites haven't taken over, my brain enough. Let me decide to put it on the former Funkasaurus Tyrus. Let's put it on the Manster. Let's put it on this goddamn ridiculous ass piece of goddamn dog shit. They can't move, can't jump. If he tried to jump, he actually wouldn't get off the ground. He could actually try to sink his feet into the ground and somehow get more traction and get off the goddamn ground. He is that goddamn inept. He doesn't understand how physics work. He doesn't understand how anything works. But even if you take everything else aside, Tyrus, this is where the NWA World Heavyweight Championship legacy has died. Congratulations, William Patrick Corgan. You're a fucking goddamn idiot. Fuck you, Corgan. I'm sorry I ever gave your goddamn vision a goddamn chance. You fucking goddamn moron. You Alex Jones listening motherfucker. You don't respect wrestling. You don't respect tradition. You're an idiot. Boy, it was a long little intro there. Anyway, I'm John Retton with my real honest thoughts on the rise and fall, rebirth, desecration, and everything else in between of the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. No, that is not going to be the entire title because I would be really wordy and everything. And yeah, this is going to be a multiple part series. It's probably going to be 2, maybe 3 parts. It just totally depends. Yeah, that was really, really long, me talking about that. But for those that are living under a rock, or for those that are not aware of what the National Wrestling Alliance is doing, and i.e., that is a lot of people, they decided to make the former Funkasaurus, Brodus Clay, the former Brodus Clay, a guy that basically was just a goddamn comedy act that really wasn't all that great even as a monster. That's why they made him a dancing dinosaur. That's why they made him that. They decided, a guy that was released by WWE in, I think, 2014 or something like that, had a cup of coffee in TNA, or when it was Global Force Impact, or wherever the fuck it was. They decided, hey, this guy that really couldn't even move in 2012 because he was closing in on 40, let's make him the world champion. Let's make this guy who's 49 years old and moves like he's 69, nice, except not in this case, let's make this guy the world champion. And right there, you just took everything, oh God, 70 plus goddamn years of ups and downs all around. Come on, defense work of the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. You just took it and just threw it in the goddamn trash. And you set the trash on fire, and then you decide, I'm going to shove this flaming trash can in every fan's face. Let me just say right now, because I'm going to dive into the history somewhat of the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. I'm not going to do an entire, timeline, because if I tried to do that, we'd be here all day. I'd be doing like about 10 parts, and quite frankly, while I'm a passionate wrestling fan, I've studied up on this stuff and listened to podcasts and researched a few things. Let's be perfectly honest, it would take forever. I'm not a wrestling historian. I'm a passionate wrestling fan, but that's it. But let's just take politics and throw them over there. Get the fuck out of here. You ever seen a man say goodbye to politics? Once. Let's just take that out of there. Don't worry, those will come. They'll come back into play. Look at look at the roster they have, for NWA. Trevor Murdoch was the current NWA champion until NWA Hard Times 3. And Matt Cardona was champion before he had an injury. I forget what it was, elbow or something like that. And he was a champion. He had beaten Trevor Murdoch. Murdoch had beaten Nick Aldis, who held the championship for 1,000 some odd days or whatever it was. And Tim Storm was the first champion in a while that really gained any prominence. That's not knocking anybody else that is champion. But Tim Storm, classic, good guy, really, tough as nails, would have fit in perfectly in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and I mean that with respect. I love Tim Storm. Great guy, great commentator, very, very good pro wrestler. And he doesn't have to do a lot, but he does it really well. And considering that I think when he was champion, he was closing it, because he's in his early 50s or something like that. So he was in his late 40s when he became champion in 2016. And then lost it sometime, I think, late in 2017. Nick Aldis held it until All In, lost it to Cody. And then Aldis won it back at NWA 70, I believe. And then held it until he lost it to Trevor Murdoch. Let me just say, if Corgan thinks that there's somebody that can replace Nick Aldis, that's fine. No wonder Nick Aldis went out of this goddamn company, because I can't really blame him. He wasted a lot of years of his prime because he's a traditionalist. I love Nick Aldis. What a fucking talent. He can wrestle like one of the classic wrestlers, He would have fit in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. He would have fit in just fine. You have him versus Buddy Rogers, that would have been great. Because he can do some top rope stuff. He's really, really good, as far as like on the mat work. And he just carries himself like a world champion. He's called himself National Treasure for a reason. And the studio setting the NWA was doing really was working. Unfortunately, Corgan said, yeah, I've paid this guy quite a bit, but, there's been, there was storyline sniping and everything, and some people still feel that this is a whole work. But no, at this point, if Aldis and Corgan are deciding to go with a work like this, then it's going to poison Aldis's, or the view that people have of Aldis, not because, there's anything wrong with working, but they've gone this far and everything. I guess his contract is up in just a couple months. And honestly, the guy should have left sooner. The guy should have left in the middle of the pandemic, or the guy should have dropped the championship, say, in March or March or June of last year, and just left. And I'm not knocking Nick Aldis. He can do what he wants, but you got to think that he could have been Impact, WWE. Bruce Pritchard hates him, but then again, Bruce Pritchard doesn't understand talent. Piece of shit. Deserves to be paintbrushed with a goddamn, scouring pad until he's, well, never mind. let's just say, I would say until he's like red in the face, but he's always red in the goddamn face. Nick Aldis could have been in AEW. He could have been in multiple companies. He would have fit in just fine in New Japan Strong. He would have fit in just fine in New Japan. Fit in just fine. He would have carried himself well. Him and Zack Sabre Jr. could have some great matches. Nick Aldis isn't the perfect pro wrestler. Do not misunderstand me. And I'm not saying that he's absolutely the best ever. But he's damn close. He's somebody that utilize those old school mentalities while bringing it into the modern age. And for a guy that carried himself like a world champion and championed the NWA as being, an alternative and everything, taking it back to the roots, just look at what the NWA has been. And I'm going to go over a little bit of history here in a minute, but you think about all the great champions, some that I mentioned, some that I'm going to mention in future installments. You think about the great champions. You think about the fact that Aldis held it for 1,000 some odd days or whatever it was. It was like, yes, you had the pandemic that shut him down right before the Crockett Cup, 2020, and then they came back for the attack, I think is what it was, in March. I did not watch a lot of 10 Pounds of Gold YouTube series. Mainly because, I watched a whole lot of stuff anyway as it was, and I needed a spark to catch me. I was aware of other events that were going on, and they were building stuff. And it seemed like Corgan, after running his own promotion, it was in Chicago, Reliance Pro Wrestling, something like that. I'm trying to remember. I might be confusing the name there. But after doing that and after working in Impact, and boy, thank God he didn't take over Impact. You thought Dixie Carter couldn't run the goddamn thing. Dixie Carter put the title on a whole lot of goddamn stupid-ass people. And Anthem has put the title on a whole lot of goddamn stupid people. Alberto El Patron, to name one at least. And Moose and a few other. But the whole point is at least Impact, while not a lot of people are watching it, they've done some things right. Granted, they made Tessa Blanchard champion, and that blew up in their goddamn face. They should have put on an actual woman that actually cares, instead of an actual woman that just wants to be, a goddamn egotist and live off her name and everything, and she could be out of wrestling for all I care. The whole point is, if Corgan had taken over goddamn Impact, could you have imagined what Impact probably would have died? Because the NWA product as it is, there are people there that could work. There are people there that could work as champion, even if it's short term. Yes, they don't have a lot of resources or whatever, even though I think Corgan has enough money that if he's throwing it at Aldis, and I love Aldis, he could spread that out among some people and try to bring in some names, but nobody wants to go there. They tape their TV in clusters. When they had All In, and they had Aldis versus Cody, and then they did NWA 70, which wasn't a bad show. I do remember retro-reviewing it, because why the hell not? I think they put the full thing on, they either put the full thing on their YouTube channel or something. I think it was on their YouTube channel. And they've done other stuff. They've utilized social media pretty well. NWA Power got launched. That was a good idea. Yes, it was a studio saying, yes, they had taped a whole bunch of stuff. And that's what you have to do. You have to tape a whole bunch of TV, especially when you're trying to cut costs, and you don't want to just film some matches, that kind of stuff, fill some promos, and then fill it with video packages. And yes, sometimes some of the stuff would work, and then they would do the old school commercials that really weren't all that good. Let's be honest, Austin Idol. I really don't want to hear Austin Idol talk. I don't want to see Austin Idol because he looks like a goddamn... He looks like the old man from Poltergeist, except the old man from Poltergeist actually was less creepy. And I respect Austin Idol for what he did in Memphis. Him and Lawler had an incredible amount of, they had an incredible amount of great matches, and they had a great feud and everything. I think it was in 87. I mean, they feuded before that. And that was one of the last big things that Memphis did as far as business, even though they would still have some steady business, let's be honest. By the by 89, 90, 91, things would start to go down because everything started to go down. But at least that was studio wrestling. That was also live every week. We're live, pal. They would do NWA Power, and it was a good idea. They would, they'd bring in some people like, holy shit, here's Pope D'Angelo De Niro. I got a question. Why the hell wasn't Pope NWA champion? They were doing something for a while where he was TV champion, and there was like a lucky 7 rule where you could cash it in and you could get a shot and everything. And this is going through all this stuff. You could do all of this, all these things properly. You could have, look, the pandemic halted a whole lot of stuff. It looked like they were going to have Aldis versus Marty Scurll. And man, had the pandemic not shut that down, had they Had they gone through with Aldis and Skrull, boy, that would have ended up not looking all that good to put it on Marty Skrull or put Skrull in a goddamn main event picture because, let's be perfectly honest, you could fuck up with your goddamn legality as far as, the age of consent is 16 in the UK. I don't fucking care. You don't do that, especially somebody that's a student, especially somebody that's drunk. You don't do that shit. Where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's a reason why any promotion that tries to bring him in, any reputable one, just basically gets shut down, at least in this country. I believe he's working a CMLL show, and it's either CMLL or AAA. I forget which. I'm sorry. But they were going to do stuff like that. They had Ricky Starks. They had Aaron Stevens, the former Damien Sandow. They had other people. They had Eddie Kingston. Kingston seemed like he was doing some stuff. Perro and Odinson. Perro's really good. Perro's good. I'm not saying Perro should have been NWA champion, but he's a beast. They have the Rock and Roll Express at one point. You're telling me putting on Ricky Morton at one point wouldn't have actually been the worst thing in the world, but it's just bad timing. The Rock and Roll Express, they were there. So many other people. Then all this stuff happens. The pandemic shuts it down. So many other people that I'm forgetting to mention. And then, okay, they're doing their YouTube stuff. They're keeping it alive and everything. They come up with a way for people to subscribe to Fight TV and get get a whole bunch of stuff and everything. I think it was at the beginning of this year. They were doing what they could, and people were supposed to subscribe for like $50 annually. That's a year, by the way, for those that, don't have the big words in their heads. Because I know these big words, at least some of them. They could have gotten that and gotten the pay-per-views or something like that. It was some kind of package deal. I forget what. But when they came back, NWA back for the attack. Think about the women. They have plenty of the... Granted, they had Melina. She's a legend in professional wrestling, which I'm sorry. No. I like Melina. Don't get me wrong. But the term legend is getting stretched there. Stretched just like the splits she used to do. She wasn't horrible, but Thunder Rosa, one of the best wrestlers in the world. Man, woman, animal, vegetable, mineral. She was champion for a while. And then Camille beat her. And, well, actually, was it Serena Deeb? They got a muddy picture there. But Thunder Rosa, Serena Deeb, other women, they were working really goddamn hard. Pandemic shut that down. They came back. NWA back for the attack. And they decided to bring in Tyrus. Why? Oh, I know why. And this is where the politics is going to come in. Because Corgan liked to listen to Alex Jones. Because Corgan is a goddamn brain parasite possessing piece of shit. And Tyrus, here's the thing. I didn't mind Tyrus when he was a Funkasaurus. I remember actually follow him on Twitter. And you think a guy might be a little bit out there, but whatever. He could be entertained. Okay, I remember this guy from WWE TV, and he ended up the best run in Impact, but okay, cool. And then you see him, and look, shape isn't even the worst thing. You could be not in the best shape on the outside as long as you're in good shape on the inside. And people are like, oh, but he's a big guy, but he's dropped some weight, he's done this, and he has the mobility of a zebra trying to get across 3 feet of land after it has been tranked and its legs have been taken off. And even the zebra would have more gumption or maybe just lay down and rot, which is what it looks like Tyrus has been doing for the past few years. Let's just take a look at let's just take a look at the facts. The politics, yes. The fact that there was the sexual harassment thing, that kind of stuff. The fact that he has his head so far up his ass, which is a colossal feat. He shouldn't be champion of any major promotion, at least a world champion. You want to make him a TV champion, it was stupid, because you neutralized Pope. I'm amazed Pope is still there. You're telling me Pope couldn't be beneficial to AEW? Pope couldn't be beneficial to New Japan Strong? Because Pope could have been like Ron the Truth Killings, African-American NWA World Heavyweight Champion. And then you had Ron Simmons, WCW World Heavyweight Champion. This is when WCW and the NWA had their thing, but he beat Bader. Tremendous stuff. Not saying you need to make somebody that just because of the race, but Tyrus is who you go with? And they wonder why their pay-per-view buys are freaking going in the shitter. I was even debating coming back and reviewing NWA after when Back for the Attack happened, but I decided, you know what? And I gave it a grace period until June 2021. And then I started to dump on it because they were starting to not have any goddamn idea what they were doing. Yes, they were running with minimal fans and that kind of stuff, and now they've gotten to where they still have minimal fans because, oh yeah, they've run off a whole lot of people that used to watch it. NWA 73. I reviewed that. And Empower. But don't worry about Empower. Don't worry. That can only happen once. That can only happen once. Only happen once because there aren't enough talented goddamn women, according to Corgan and Murdoch, who's championing and trumpeting and parroting what Corgan says, unless Murdoch actually feels that way. If Murdoch actually feels that way, he's a goddamn idiot because he's giving a bad example to his son. Or I assume, I mean, I don't know. I don't actually know how many kids he has. God forbid that man is actually able to reproduce. But if he's just parroting what Corgan says, okay, he's doing it for a paycheck, fine. He could say, well, this is what the boss says, and I got it, and this is his vision, and this is how he feels. This is how I feel. Fine, towing the company line is one thing, WWE, AEW, WCW. So many have done that. My whole point is Murdoch was even a better alternative or a better choice as champion compared to Tyrus. Matt Cardona. Again, Pope. Pope was right there. Nope, can't have Pope. There aren't a lot of people that are coming in that could have been champion. I would argue if they actually had utilized Mike Bennett for a little bit, they could have made him champion. Mike Bennett's a hell of a goddamn worker. He certainly would have brought them better publicity than Tyrus. But now they got to get that Fox News demographic. They got to get that stuff because they have no ratings. I mean, I don't even know how many views they actually get on their goddamn weekly television or weekly programming because it's not even on TV. They have that, and they have it on Fight, and then they have it on their YouTube channel a little bit later. And so many people are watching, and so many people are so goddamn happy that NWA When Our Shadows Fall, that was a June pay-per-view last year, had like 500-600 buys. And I think NWA Empower did pretty well. I think they had a package deal. So, I mean, last August, I could see that. And then I decided, you know what? I gave up. And it wasn't anything against Aldis. It wasn't anything against Murdoch. It wasn't anything against... I didn't like what they were doing with Tyrus. I didn't like how they were underutilizing Pope. Camille, hell of a goddamn talent. Her and Layla Hirsch had a great goddamn tear down the house match. That was good stuff. They have women that can succeed. They have women that are talented. Then they had Taryn Terrell in there, that goddamn screeching stupid bitch. But the whole point is back to the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. It sounds like I'm dumping on the NWA brand. I want them to succeed. I don't want anything bad to happen to the NWA brand. But you're going to make Tyrus world champion? Oh, yeah, well, this is what I want to do. This is what Corgan said. I guess it was somewhere he says, well, if you don't like it, don't watch, because this is what I'm going to book. Okay, Corgan, here's the thing. Not a lot of people watch any. Like, Corgan's going to listen to this. As a fan, as a wrestling fan, somebody that has been a wrestling fan since 1985, there's ebbs and flows, ups and downs. It's on a pendulum. It's going back and forth, back and forth. The NWA World Heavyweight Championship meant something. It really meant something. From... Yes, it came out of the National Wrestling Association, I believe. And you had so many great... just so many... St. Louis had great champions. Lou Thez, great goddamn world champion. I mean, Lou Thez started wrestling in the goddamn 30s, I believe in the 30s. He was wrestling for years and years and years. And then... Of course, he was going to be one of the figureheads, one of the featured guys for the NWA Championship. And from like 49 to 60, I think he lost it to Kanitsky in 66. Yes, you had Rogers. Yes, you had others. But Lou Thez, class. Somebody that wanted to be a world champion. Somebody that carried himself like a world champion. Even from the limited footage that there is. Pat O'Connor, one reign, 903 days. Lost it to Buddy Rogers. Great champion there. You're looking at all these great champions, all this stuff, and Corgan claims to care about tradition and care about pushing people and featuring people properly. There's nothing wrong with doing the studio setting. Sometimes I think it's a little too stripped down. Why didn't you just give it back to Tim Storm? I know that he's doing the commentary thing. You're telling me Tim Storm couldn't have been a placeholder for a few months to build up somebody else on TV? And that's another thing. That's another thing about it. They promote the 10 pounds of gold, this great championship. When was the last time it really meant anything off of all? I mean, yes, Murdoch had that great story. Once Murdoch won, that was it. They don't have any depth. And this is proof by the fact that NWA Hard Times 3, in front of, I don't know how many people there were, but just judging by the little video, judging by the pictures, I can't imagine there were more than 300 people in whatever that shoebox was that they had in New Orleans. All these wrestlers are flown in. All these wrestlers that could mean something. These people that you could push up to the main event. And yes, you have to have a layered card. Some people are going to be mid-card. Some people are going to be this. Some people are going to be that. Tyrus has no business being on any wrestling roster. And outside of politics, the guy is a piece of shit. Of course he's a fucking piece of shit. And anybody that thinks like him is a goddamn piece of shit. And if you have a problem with that, fuck you. I don't fucking care. My channel, I will say what I want. There is being on one side of the political fence or the other. There's a green and everything. It's not about that. It's not about right and wrong, right and left, all that. It's about having a goddamn brain. And if you feel the way he feels, you're a fucking moron. And that's just what it comes down to. But even if you take politics aside, what does this guy have to offer? What does this guy have to offer as world champion? Nothing. He has nothing to offer as world champion. He can't move. He can't do anything. Like, I've seen fucking corpses that, maybe could be shocked back, like the guy, Weekend at Bernie's. You could move that guy around a whole lot better. That guy could have moved around and he was dead. You could reanimate Luther. You could reanimate Luther. You could reanimate all these great world champions. You bring back Ric Flair in his prime. All this. Any of the bad title switches. Tommy Rich weighing it for 4 days. Shane Douglas taking the title, throwing it down, and, they could all kiss my ass. That looks great by comparison. So many people held that championship. Blood, sweat, tears, broken bones. Leaving their families for months and months and months. Jack Briscoe. Didn't even get a chance to, mention and talk about Jack Briscoe. 2 reigns as champion. Finally had to say, I can't take it anymore. Please get this off of me. But Jack Briscoe, classically trained wrestler. Eddie Graham loved him, adored him. There were Gene Knitsky, Canadian, great talent. Made shots in Washington State. He's revered to this day. Classically trained wrestler. Nearly ruined the goddamn Starrcade 83 main event, but I digress. He treated it way too seriously. But Dusty Rhodes, even though he didn't have a whole lot, Dusty Rhodes had charisma. Dusty Rhodes was a bigger guy. Bigger baby, if you will. Dusty Rhodes had charisma. Dusty Rhodes now would make a better world champion. And Dusty Rhodes, unfortunately, is no longer with us. Has been gone for nearly 7.5 years. I had to do the math in my goddamn head. Tyrus now has basically what Corgan has done, what Tyrus has done. Anybody that was in the decision-making process for this basically squatted down and took a shit on the goddamn NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Nobody can tell me, nobody can convince me this is a good idea. The NWA brand, by all accounts, is basically dead. No fault for the people that are actually trying to carry the goddamn thing. But the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, the Globe Belt, the 10 pounds of gold, this prestigious championship that I will talk about in other installments, go through a history thing. This is what Corgan did. Congratulations, William Patrick Corgan. You goddamn transphobic dumb son of a bitch. You goddamn moron. You bloated, stupid, past your prime, barely average rocker outside of the 90s. You take a look at listen to any Smashing Pumpkins album after, say, the Batman and Robin soundtrack. Maybe after 1999, 2000. 99, 2000, I ain't talking about the Gorillaz. You could listen to anything that Corgan has done in the last 20 years and tell me that it's not very good is really the best way I'll say it. So everybody can feel however the fuck they want. I am never going to watch an NWA program again. I'll talk about the history. I'll watch some classic stuff. I'll look for stuff on YouTube. I'll look for stuff from the Jim Crockett Promotions days and other things I'll talk about again in future installments. But I am never going to watch this again. I root for everybody that's good in that company to succeed, grind, get to better spots and everything. But if the NWA brand under William Billy Patrick Corgan is still here in March or April of next year, I will be amazed. They can't draw fans. They can't draw flies to shit. They can't do anything. It's a complete desecration to the spirit and the sport of professional wrestling to put the championship, this championship held by so many greats and some not so great, but some that worked hard, and you put it on the former Funkasaurus. Just because you wanted to get on Fox goddamn News. William Patrick Corgan's a goddamn idiot. That's all I gotta fucking say about that. This went a lot angrier than I expected, if that's even English. So yeah, other installments coming up where I talk about history, maybe get a little bit calmer. I can't wait to see just how angry people get, but I don't really fucking care because I want more companies to succeed. Fuck you, Billy Corgan. That's all I have to goddamn say there. Fuck your parents for giving birth to you. Smashing Pumpkins not being part of the history of music, I don't really think that would have been that much of a loss if it meant that he wasn't going to put the 10 pounds of gold on the Funkasaurus. The Fuckasaurus, the Fuck-Offosaurus. Bro, this guy sucks. That's all I gotta say. Agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritland. Fuck Brodus Clay. Fuck William Patrick Corgan. Fuck anybody that liked this. See you soon.